For more on the coronavirus pandemic and specifically how it's affecting students returning to school is Dr. Bethany Marshall, a family therapist. So doctor, I really appreciate you coming on because here we are in the later part of August. A lot of people are preparing to go back to school. So what advice do you have for not only the students returning to school, but the parents preparing for that return?
Alex, it's so important for parents to understand that children are the emotional thermometers of the family. They reflect their parents' anxieties, societal anxieties. So parents have to understand that and also give themselves permission to have their own anxiety. Both parents and children alike have back to school anxiety, but parents have to contain their own anxiety so that they can be empathic towards their children. They can reassure their children, and they have to listen to the children's anxieties about going back to school and really give them problem-solving strategies. Or in some case, anxiety is about being at home and doing school over Zoom. The most common anxiety I hear from children is that they don't like the way they look on Zoom. It really freaks them out. So that would be a very common problem for a parent to listen to and give some strategies for the child as to how to cope with it.
Interesting, because you know that's something that happens physically in school. I mean, every kid growing up is self-conscious about something at one point, but to see it actually translate through the technological realm, that's interesting too, because it's something that doesn't get talked about enough when we're talking about this conversation as well. It's usually go to school or don't go to school, but people don't really talk about the nuances, which is something that I do want to get into, because when we talk about anxiety, when we talk about the stresses, I mean, the CDC right now is saying that at this point, more young people are dying from lockdowns, that being suicides or drug overdoses. We see that the opioid epidemic is climbing back. So there are outside factors playing into this conversation as well. How can families prepare for these outside factors? Is it just a matter of being more open and talking about it more, or is there more to it?
Alex, that's a brilliant question because we have to understand that adolescents and children externalize their anxiety, temper tantrums, crying, clinging, sleeplessness, and suicide may just be one more way to externalize what's going on the inside. I think having dinner with your child every night has been proven to be very effective. Mindfulness is very helpful for kids, especially those with behavioral problems like ADHD, to help them think about what's happening to them. Create a safe place in the house, especially if you have a very young child, where there's sort of like a blanket or their favorite teddy bear or animal or something like that. So they have a place where they can go and self-soothe if they need it.
And I know when we have this conversation too, there's public health risks weighed against the educational risks as well. And that's a very hard conversation to have because, quite frankly, I don't know if we have anything to go off of. I mean, this is an unprecedented crisis to some degree. I can't remember the last time where schools have been closed across the country. I mean, for an extended period of time without a necessary return date. I mean, this is a very strange circumstance that we're in right now. So when we talk about these conversations, and especially the development of younger children, I know it varies depending on their age, from kindergarten all the way to high school, but do you suspect that coming out of this in the long term, we will see some effects coming out of this?
I think we will have some negative effects. I think there will be an increase in anxiety. You talked about an increase in suicide. But what we can do about it, Alex, is that we parents and adults, we have to take our own emotional temperature. We have to monitor how we feel about the situation, because how we feel is going to get instilled straight into our children. We have to give our children something predictable. In the face of the unknown, we all read in our worst possible fears. Children are no different. So if you say, well, I don't know when this is going to end, or, I don't know when you're going to be able to see your friends, all the I don't knows have to go out the window. Tell them that you're in charge, you're going to protect them, keep them safe, you're going to make sure that all of their needs are met. And I think that one of the most important things we can do for our children is to not isolate them from other children. I don't quite know how that shakes out scientifically, but the play drive is something that we have in common with all mammals, and it is the most disastrous thing that you can disrupt. It's more disastrous than disrupting education. If children are prevented from playing on a particular day, they will make up that exact same amount of time the next day. Children and animals do this. That's how much it's hardwired into our needs and our drives as human beings. So help your children play. And if they can't play with other children, find a way to even do it like with an animal or playing games or something like that. That will really calm them down and help them during such a difficult, traumatic time for all of us.
No, that's excellent advice. And it's something that we do hear from basically everybody at this point. I mean, from President Trump to Dr. Anthony Fauci to Bill Gates, they all stress the importance of getting kids back to school for that very reason. Education is one thing, but developmentally, it's also getting kids interacting with other kids once again, because that's so important for them learning things that you don't learn in a book, for example, how to share, how to deal with other people. Those are things that are intangibles that you can't necessarily get through remote learning all the time. So I think that's the obstacle for a lot of these politicians. I don't have an answer for them, and I don't envy the situation that they're in, but nonetheless, that is good advice for all the parents and all the children who are preparing to go back to school. Dr. Bethany Marshall, I really appreciate you coming on and breaking down this very important issue at this very important time. Thank you.